And before I start, let's go around and make sure who is on the line. At NRC, we'll go from NRC and then Dominion, and Dominion can introduce everybody else, and then we'll go to member of the public, okay? Okay, here, my name is Chandu Patel again.
John McCurgan, I'm Chief of the Containment and Ventilation Branch.
Venitlation, Containment and Venitlation Branch.
And Perry, you are online, right?
Thank you, yes.
Okay, so Gina, who is online? Gina or?
Hi, Chindu. Yes, I'm on the line, but I'm calling from a distance too. So Tony Banks is on the line from Dominion Press, and Tony, can you introduce the other Dominion people?
Hi, Shandu. Wayne Nixon and Tony Banks are at Innsbruck.
Okay.
And then we have people from Bechtel, right? Don't we, Tony?
Hey, Tony, can you do me a favor and send all the names to Perry or me, okay, please?
Yes, I will.
So we don't need to go through, all the. I'm not going to write down everybody's name. We can go around, okay, but I'm not going to write down everybody's name, okay?
That's fine, Shandu.
Go ahead, please.
So Bechtel.
Yes,
on the line.
From Bechtel, I have speaking Doug Kemp, we have Lynn Vanderpool, and Mary Richmond.
Thank you.
In GEH, Patricia Campbell.
And Mike Arcaro from GEH.
Thank you.
Okay. Any member of the public?
David Martin, Chester, Virginia.
Okay. Hi, David. Anybody else?
Catherine Smith, Spotsylvania County Government.
Hi, Catherine. How are you?
Good, thank you very much.
Okay. Do we hear Erica?
Yes. Hey, Patel. This is Erica Gray from Henrico.
Hi, Erica. Nice talking to you. Anybody else? All right. Okay. As I said, this is the one of the regular meetings we have been holding for last couple of months, and of course this is a Category 1 meeting, which is between NRC and Dominion. But at the appropriate time, we will open it for the public comment. And
Mute on.
For the control room habitability, I'll just give you a little bit of a background. We normally calculate. What are the consequences just in case there is a concentration of toxic gases released, and what will be, impact on the control room, basically. With that, I will just say we did look at the Dominion calculations, and there are some questions we have for assumptions for certain parameters used in a more detailed analysis. So with that, I can turn over to John, and he can go in more detail and describe a little bit of more of our questions, okay? So, John, go ahead, please.
Great. Thank you, Shandu. So, again, this is John McCurgan. I'm Chief of the Containment and Ventilation Branch. So the staff is in the process of reviewing the control room habitability analysis that was put forward for this design. We were able to conduct a regulatory audit on some of the detailed calculations, and the staff has also performed some confirmatory analysis. And so in the staff's analysis and the review of the applicant's analysis, there were some discrepancies that we wanted to talk about a little bit today. And one of the areas in particular has to do with the gasoline, a potential gasoline spill near the site, and the concentrations that potentially reach the control room and may go into the control room. I think there have been some RAI exchanges on this. We've also been working, of course, with our fellow reviewers in a different division that do the transportation hazards analysis. And I know they've also participated in some audit activities and some RAI exchanges. So I think we're fairly far along on this, but we wanted to get a better understanding of some of the input parameters that were used in that analysis. And in particular, the analysis that both the applicant and the NRC staff have done look at a range of temperatures, a range of wind speeds, a range of air stability classes in performing this type of analysis. And we wanted to get a better understanding of how those ranges were selected in the analysis that the applicant did, and if there is additional justification for the particular temperatures and wind speeds and stability classes that were used to do that analysis. And I might focus particularly on the temperature, because depending on the temperature that's assumed in the analysis, given some very conservative uses of wind speed and stability class, there can be some concentrations in the control room that are deserve extra attention. And so if I could start with that fairly general question of how they selected the temperatures that were used in the analysis, and then maybe my reviewer, Danny Chen, here might have some additional follow-on questions.
John, this is Tony Banks with Dominion, and we understand your questions and your line of questions for the meteorological inputs. And we also have on the line with us Mary Richmond from Bechtel, and I believe she is prepared to begin addressing that kind of information need you might have.
Great, thank you.
Okay. This is Mary Richmond with Bechtel. Just generally, the way that we choose the met sensitivity analysis that we done is we develop a table and we do a range of stability classes, time of day, temperatures, dependent on the Pascal stability classes. And then we choose two different temperatures that we use. We have the daytime classes, so to speak, and we use with that we use the highest mean daily maximum temperature for the day. So we use 91.5 when we're looking at the midday stability classes. And then, there's some stability classes, like the more stable classes, when this occurs at nighttime. So for the nighttime ones, we've chosen to use 71.5 as a stability, as the nighttime temperature, which is the highest mean daily minimum temperature for the 3 years that we looked at. So that's basically how we make that determination. What we want to do is, the stability classes, the way they're formed, it depends on many factors: solar radiation, temperature, and the stability of the atmosphere. We don't want to make a set that is not realistic when we go into it. So what we did is we went through the classes and we made a grouping of them so that we can make sure that we hit the worst case, but an actual worst case scenario, so to speak.
So, Mary, if I could, thank you. That's very helpful. If I could just ask a couple of questions.
Sure.
So for the daytime temperatures, could you tell me which stability classes you found appropriate, and maybe what the limiting stability class and the limiting wind speed was for the daytime environment?
Sure. Get my table. Okay. So for the daytime classes, so to speak, where we chose like a 12 noon 91.5, we looked at stability class A with a surface wind speed of 1.5, stability class B with a surface wind speed of 1.5, stability class C, and we looked at two wind speeds, 3 and 5.5. We varied some cloud cover over that one. Then we also looked at stability class D with a wind speed of 5.5. And that would be the stability classes that we chose for the daytime based on the estimation of the Pascal stability classes. And then we did early morning, the other ones, the remaining ones we did were early morning ones where we used the 71.5. And that would be a stability class D with a surface wind speed of 3. Stability class E with a surface wind speed of 1. Another one at stability class E with a surface wind speed of 2. And then the F stability class, we did it at 3 various wind speeds. We varied 1, 2, and 3 meters per second. Does that help? Does that answer your question?
Yes, yeah, thank you. And so let me ask, is there a guidance document or a other reference that you're using to limit the set of stability classes that you look at in daytime versus the set that you look at nighttime and the associated wind speeds?
Yes, actually, there's a couple different documents out. We use the book. It's like the standard scale stability classes, and it's also shown in Handbook of Atmospheric Dispersion by DOE. But we also, if we go to directly to a new reg, and that's when they were looking at habit, new reg CR 5656.
Right.
Well, it doesn't quite line them up. It does go into it's in 2.2.2, and it goes into determining the worst case. It has to be determined by trial and error, because sometimes it involves low wind speeds, sometimes it involves high wind speeds, and because when you have more wind speed, you get more volatility. But it warns in selecting a set of conditions to maintain consistency within the set. So it goes into the new reg, for example, a combination of high temperature, high solar radiation, and strongly stable conditions leads to larger concentrations than high temperature, high solar, and unstable. But the latter is realistic, and that's kind of how you saw with ours, with the A, B, and C, you're going to get the higher temperatures because these occur during the midday. And then it says, but the latter is realistic while the former is not. Thus, the former set ought not to be used in control room habitability assessment. So there's a little bit of a warning there. But there's a lot of documents that give the Pascal stability class tables that go into the surface wind speeds, solar radiation values, and the night, whether it's nighttime, daytime kind of thing.
Yes.
So I can provide those if you'd like.
Well, I think we have the documents, but you said something very that I wanted to dwell on for just a moment.
Sure.
And so, because you said for control room habitability to avoid certain classes of conditions. And so was that from the new reg or the DOE handbook, or what? Do you recall what you said?
That is from the new reg, and it's not that you avoid certain conditions, it's that you make sure when you set those conditions up that you're realistic with it. Like, you're not going to have a very stable condition with a high temperature and high solar radiation value, because that's kind of how the stability classes are determined. So you don't want to do something that's not possible to do. So if you're inputting values that are, well, you're going to get a higher concentration, they're not really meaningful because those conditions don't exist.
And so that's the piece where I really want to dwell for just another few minutes. And is that, so how have you captured that in your submittal or in the audit materials? That's a very important consideration. Because if you pick the wrong parameters, you get very challenging values. And so your justification for which parameters you found reasonable and which sets of parameters you saw as unrealistic or unachievable turns out to be very important here.
Right. And basically, in the calculation itself, we talk about the meteorological sensitivity analysis that we do. Right. And it's really a standard set that we've done on all of our toxic gas analysis. Right. And it goes into the range for the range of MET conditions based on selected stability class, wind speed, time of day, and cloud cover. And we say that the basis for this is basically the defined Pascal meteorological stability classes. We don't actually call out the new reg in this, but it's kind of implied that we're sticking with the defined Pascal meteorological stability class, because if we were to do something, let's just say FN1 in 100 degrees with a lot of solar radiation, we would be going outside the defined Pascal meteorological classes definition in order to choose something like that.
Okay.
Does that make
That does. Hang on for 1 second. I just want to have a quick sidebar with my colleague here.
NRC's gone on mute for the first time at 3:17.
Okay, so
Off mute.
let me come back now.
91-degree
I've
temperature.
got a very specific, I think we've had a good discussion here, but, so now let me come down to the brass tacks here. So for some staff calculations where we've looked at temperature conditions of 91.5 and a wind speed of about a meter per second, Danny, do you recall what the stability class was?
Always F.
You're always looking at F.
They are looking, everybody pay attention to F.
F.
Yeah, it's conservative.
Okay. And so that's the calculation that you ran that generates some challenging results.
Yeah.
So, and let me say it again because I think I might have screwed it up. So it was 91.5, 1 meter per second,
Yeah.
F stability.
Yeah.
Okay. So that is the question that you have is why is that not a realistic set of conditions?
I think that's not real. I just want to ask, do they agree with my calculation? If they agree, they did not pass.
Okay. So that's where it's those sets of conditions that create challenging concentrations for us, Mary.
right?
John, this is Tony again. May I make sure we understand the question? That is, the conditions under which you all used for staff calculations, you selected F as in Foxtrot stability class versus what Mary was describing for us at the 91.5 temperature variable, and that was, she mentioned stability classes A, B, C, and D.
Right. She didn't have F.
Correct.
F and F.
He didn't have F in this.
Right. I think the only discrepancy right now is the mirroring or the set of the data, so to speak, is the temperature. I think we both ran the F and 1 meter per second. Where it is the Pascal stability classes defines F as a nighttime type of thing. So it would be very unusual to see 91.5 degrees at nighttime. So that's why in doing so, we choose like a 5 a.m. because that's probably the most conservative when you're setting that up. And we also choose a more, it's still pretty high. It's in the 70s for the nighttime value for the F stability class.
I understand 91 degrees high for the nighttime, but in the daytime it's 91.5. Now why we insist it's nighttime?
Because you've chosen the F stability class, which is a nighttime stability class where you have the more stable time. So if you go to some of the documents where the stability class is defined, and you look at the Pascal stability classes, you'll see that F occurs during the nighttime because it's a very stable class. There'll be like a table. You'll see a table for surface wind speeds at 10 meters, and it'll have a range of wind speeds. Then it'll have a range of solar radiation values for the daytime ones. And then the nighttime, you'll see the nighttime. And actually, I think in the LOHA manual, this is true.
Reference to the DOE manual.
Or I could reference the DOE manual here. And that's DOE /TIC, I believe, 11223. And you'll see the relationships of the Pascal stability class and turbulence, and you'll have daytime conditions and nighttime conditions. And the nighttime, you only see the F listed under the nighttime conditions because it's a very stable class. That's when you get the more stable conditions. And under various wind speeds, that's why we do a whole different pairing of them. under the various wind speeds, you'll see like all the way from less than 2 to greater than 6. Under some wind speeds, you'll have that A through D can occur during the daytime, depending on the wind speeds that you'll get.
Oh, okay.
So that's why we chose it. It was just based on the defined Pascal stability classes.
Okay, when we did calculation in the past, we calculate all velocity. The reason is that even daytime, you cannot say it's always high wind. Daytime can be 0 wind speed. Okay, that's why when we did calculation before, we calculate 1 meter per second, 2 meter per second, 3 meter per second, 5 meter per second. So I think we should limit it to high wind speed during daytime.
And we don't. We have some low wind speed. When you have low wind speed during the daytime, if you look at your Pascal stability class table, like we've done during the daytime, we've done A at 1.5 meters per second. We've also done B at 1.5 meters per second. So those are the wind speeds that we do for the 12 noon that line up with the defined stability classes. And then with the defined stability classes, it also defines under what wind speed and time of day those stability classes occur. So we keep those together. So I'm not saying that low wind speeds don't occur during the day. It's just it's under a different stability class that those low wind speeds occur.
If it is 1 meter per second, why is not stability F?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
If it is 1 meter per second, why you say it cannot be stability F?
I'm saying if it's 1 meter per second, it can be stability class F. It's just during the nighttime hours that occurs. And we do run an F and 1.
Why is nighttime? Why is
right.
Nighttime?
We do it as it's nighttime. Of course, what we do is we skew it to the early morning hours just to get a little bit more. But we do we do F at low wind speeds, but we run it as it was like a nighttime condition to make sure that we stay within the defined Pascal stability classes.
The definition of stability is related to wind speed and temperature. It has nothing to do with daytime and nighttime. Do you agree?
It has to do with wind speed, yes, and the temperature difference between 2 points in time. And if you're going to have to look at the Pascal turbulence types. It's just that the F stability class is defined such that these stable conditions occur only at nighttime. Because that's when you get like your temperature inversions from the daytime, and you get that difference. So there's a little bit more that goes into it than just there's a temperature difference, but there's more that goes into it. It's between two different heights that it's taken.
I understand. Normally, low wind speed happens in the middle of the night. In past experience, in the middle of the day, we also calculate different wind speed. If that's the case, maybe we should ask expert from other branches to.
Okay, can you hold on 1 minute? Okay, I'm going to put you on mute. Okay.
Okay.
NRC is going back on mute for the second time at 3:27 p.m. This is the second mute they have gone on. This is David Martin of Martin Image News. NRC and telephone contact between Dominion Power on North Anna 3. They've gone. This is second mute. They're still on. They're gone. And the phone calls there in 27 minutes. They're gone mute twice in this telephone conference call with Dominion Power and on Dominion North Anna proposed 3.
Mary, so this is John McCurgan again. Thank you. I think that was a good discussion. Okay. If I could just pull a couple of additional details from you.
Okay.
So the reference that you're citing, that was the DOE handbook? And is that...
Right.
Let me share with you just a little bit of our process. So the staff is really asked to make a determination based on the docketed material. And, you'll forgive me, I haven't memorized all of your REI responses. Is in any of your REI responses, do you mention these materials and what your approach is to coming up with these stability classes and wind speeds and temperatures? Because I know there were some REIs back and forth with in 223.
Not
right.
Detail.
Okay.
And not that they would have answered at that engineering assumption level.
Okay. So are you relying on the DOE handbook for that stability class breakdown that you're using?
The stability class breakdown that we're using is in several. Even it's in the Aloha. It's just like a standard meteorological, the PG stability classes.
Sure.
You can get it in numerous references. That's just one that I thought you guys might be more comfortable with.
Yep.
So we rely on, we just take a lot of things into consideration when we do the MET sensitivity. Mm-hmm. So the PG defined stability classes is one thing that we look at. That's also, you can probably find that in the Aloha manual.
Yes.
I read a little bit in the NRC's new reg guide about, just making sure you mirror up the, and they even used the example of it's not realistic for high temperature, high solar radiation, which you'd find during the daytime, and stable conditions. That the realistic one would be high temperature, high solar radiation, unstable, which is like your A stability classes, which we also cover.
Right.
So there's a lot of things that go into that. There's some guidance from the EPA that's also out there. Another guideline for using vapor cloud dispersion models that has this discussion in it is from the American Institute of Chemical Engineers. There's a guideline for that. I don't think we've ever gone into that detail in an RAI response on how we devise our meteorological sensitivity analysis, other than saying that we do use the defined Pascal meteorological stability classes when we do that.
Okay, because again, where we are is we're trying to pull together